How will the war in Ukraine end? The Russian President Vladimir Putin cannot win the war. Putin cannot win the war because the Russian army is completely unprepared to conquer a nation of 43 million people. Their equipment is rusty, there are no uniforms, nothing to equip the freshly drafted soldiers with, and even no food. There is a lack of coordination and communication in the chain of command. Corruption is rife. According to US top general Mark Milley, the Russian military has suffered more than 100,000 dead Russian soldiers. Furthermore, the number that are missing or captured is unknown. Ukraine has military equipment from NATO member countries. At the end of January, Germany confirmed that it would send Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine and allowed other states that possessed these German tanks to deliver them to Kyiv. Abrams tanks will be supplied to Ukraine by the USA. The UK will donate Challenger tanks. Thousands of Western weapons have already been delivered to Ukraine, including armored vehicles, anti-tank systems, howitzers, missile systems, MLRS. Most importantly, people in Ukraine are ready to fight. The differences in motivation levels are not hard to explain. Ukrainians are fighting for their homeland, and Russians are fighting for Putin's ambitions. At the same time, the situation at the front right now is complicated. After the Ukrainian liberation of an important administrative center, the city of Kherson, Russia was forced to retreat. But with the onset of 2023, the Russian army managed to achieve some success, including the capture of the town of Soledar. A settlement for 10,000 people was wiped off the face of the earth, just like Mariupol, captured by Russia in May. Experts and Western intelligence predict a second attempt at a large-scale attack on Ukraine this spring. Ukraine is preparing to repel the attack and go on a decisive counteroffensive. Perhaps this will be a turning point in the Russian-Ukrainian war. Why are there no ceasefire negotiations? Negotiations with the Kremlin are currently useless. Practice has shown that Putin violates any guarantees, promises, and even signed agreements. In Ukraine, they say that they will be ready to talk with Russia only after the territory of the entire country is liberated. Up to 20% of the territory of Ukraine remains under Russian occupation. Ukraine must achieve victory in 2023. Time is limited. Because of the 2024 elections, Washington will not be able to spend so much on supporting Kyiv during the presidential campaign. America's attention and support will weaken, and Europe will inevitably follow. In the West, there is an increasing observable fatigue regarding this war. Electricity and gas prices in Europe have skyrocketed due to the sanctions against Russia. In the US, public approval of the administration's actions towards Ukraine, including multi-billion-dollar aid packages, is rapidly declining. They are expecting a breakthrough from Kyiv. A breakthrough at the front is possible, but only if Ukraine gets enough weapons. In particular, Kyiv needs long-range weapon systems. In the event that the Ukrainian armed forces are able to regain control of Crimea, annexed in 2014, and other areas captured after the start of the invasion, a peace agreement between Kyiv and Moscow may become possible. A special tribunal similar to the Nuremberg trials, the trial that followed the defeat of Nazi Germany in World War II, will be held against the political and military leadership of Russia, as well as Russian state propagandists and other key figures in the war. If Russia ends up losing the war, it is probable that the status quo of Russian politics and political life cannot remain as it is. Failure in the war is almost certain to lead to some form of regime change and rearrangement. Russia's war in Ukraine has now been going on for. According to media sources and the statements of politicians in the West, it is known that Vladimir Putin expected to take over the neighboring state and establish a puppet regime in the capital within a few days. Officers of the Russian army were ordered to take ceremonial uniforms with them to the war in order to take part in the victory parade in Kyiv. However, the invasion that Moscow tried for a long time to hide under the guise of a special military operation failed. Now, Russia's leadership uses the word war more and more frequently. They present their attack on Ukraine as an existential challenge for Russia, a battle with the liberal ideology of the West. Propaganda and officials say that Russia will not give up under any circumstances. Nuclear weapons are invoked among leadership as possible future options. Could Putin use nuclear weapons if he realizes he is losing the war? Maybe. Then there would be nothing more to discuss here. But the probability is low, because a nuclear strike would inevitably be followed by a retaliatory strike.